Welcome to the Jenny Raven podcast. Meet Trish from Be a Lady. So welcome to this podcast with me, Jenny Raven. I'm absolutely delighted that Trish from Be a Lady from up north, where I come from, is joining us today. Trish, how are you doing?
I'm very well, Jenny. Very well. Thank you for inviting me on the show.
We finally got here. We've had a couple of attempts at getting this recording done, and we had a fabulous conversation while I believe you were in one of your sex shops, wrangling customers and juggling balls. But
not in the literal way. yes, we did.
It's already falling apart in all the right ways.
It's already started. Okay, go for it. Yeah.
So I normally start these conversations with a bunch of fun questions that loosen us all up. So I'm just going to dive straight in. So Trish, tell me, PVC or rubber?
PVC.
Satin or lace?
Satin.
Real leather or fake leather?
Oh, real leather every day.
Red or black?
Black.
10 denier or 20 denier?
10.
Ideal height of heels for playtime?
Ooh, 4, 5 maybe.
And we're talking inches, of course.
Of course. 5.
On camera or behind the camera?
Behind.
Watch or be watched?
Watch.
Favourite naughty word?
Pussy.
Solo, twosome, threesome or more?
Threesome.
And final question, how would you describe yourself?
My motto is live once, try twice, and don't die wondering.
Oh, that's a good one. I like that. So tell us all about Be a Lady and its original origins, which came out of Nice and Naughty, which you've just been talking about.
Yeah, so Nice and Naughty are licensed adult shops. They've been around for a long time, nearly 26 years. I've one in Chester and one in Warrington. By my first experience of cross-dressing, my naivety in my 30s, a gentleman came into Chester and bought a whole heap of clothes and then asked to try them on. And that was my first experience of what cross-dressing was about. And from there, over the years, I built a very good business base, customer base of cross-dressers in Chester. And then obviously we expanded and then Warrington. And what I learnt during that time was that many people that were cross-dressing had all the same issues, where to store their belongings, the secrecy they lived because they couldn't share and talk to people about it. So I then only recently, 2.5 years ago now, created Be a Lady, which initially started with a storage solution for people that we can ship around the country. So they store with us. They know it's safe. We offer laundry services. The whole problems in which people came up against. And then we then created a purpose-built studios for makeovers. So we moved last year into a studio that now has content rooms, so we can have photographs. We go chaperone service, so you can go for coffee, go for lunch, having been made up to be the woman you want to be, whether that be for 2 or 3 hours, whether it be the day, whether you want to head off to the village in the evening, off to the sauna in the afternoon. So we offer the full package. And my concept's always been, it's not about you having a bit of makeup slapped on and wearing a dress. It's about your experience. It's about you feeling relaxed, comfortable, and enjoying your day or your time with us. And it's been an amazing success. And I'm really proud of it. I'm proud that I'm helping people be who they want to be, whether that is just for a couple of hours or whether that is transition into something they want to do more permanently.
Right. And I mean, both of us are old enough to have lived through, I guess, a sea change or a generational change. I grew up, as a very young person, considering myself to be a transvestite or tranny, which would be the local parlance in the playground, which has kind of evolved into cross-dressing. And now, of course, trans is extraordinarily accepted, championed even in the younger communities. Have you seen that in any way, in your journey, and how would you characterize it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think when I first started in the adult industry, in the retail side of it, there were cross-dressers or transvestites. They were the two sort of commonly used words. Transvestites were those that tended to dress more living as a woman, and cross-dressers were the secret cross-dressing sort of kink or fetish style of life, rather than, or sexual side of life, rather than it being a way of life. So even though that's evolved, and cross-dress, and maybe my knowledge of it's evolved, the cross-dressing side very much was often, and still is, married heterosexual men that are of a certain age that couldn't or won't take the risk of being open with their partner. So they tend to live that double life and get their escapism. And I'll call it escapism because I think it's escaping the alpha male required position they live in with a family and children and a job. And there's an expectation of that alpha male to provide, and they escape it. So when they come to be a lady, they get to escape the pressures of being that man and that alpha male that's expected of them. So most of the Be a Lady clientele are predominantly cross-dressing, not trans or transitioning to being living as a woman. They tend to be the guys that come to me tend to be more inclined to just escape for that couple of hours.
Right. And it's a curious state of affairs, really, because I was with a girlfriend who allows me to dress with her recently, and we were both talking about how almost harmless and silly cross-dressing is, and I mean that in a loving and affectionate way. It's fun, and it's a release and a relief, and yet it still seems to be quite stigmatized and frowned upon. It's strangely not accepted in the way that other things seem to be accepted.
I find, and this is only my experience, I find those women that accept, and I'll say accept loosely, those women that acknowledge it's there and it happens and their partner is a cross-dresser, often pigeonhole it into a different section of their life. It's almost like they don't want to be part of it, and they put it in a box, because what they don't want is to lose what they have got, which is a family life and a loving husband, and the fear of, not fear of accepting, that sounds wrong, the fear of confronting it sometimes is too much to deal with. So there are women out there that absolutely open their arms to it. It's part of our life and it's great fun. And it can be. But I also think there are a lot of women that fear the loss of their alpha male husband to cross-dressing, because, as you say, the stigma around it is, does that make my husband gay? Does that make my husband, does he prefer being a woman than being a man? And the fear, and everything evolves around fear, doesn't it? So the fear that woman feels often makes her put it to one side and try not to face up to it. And I'm only going off my experience. I can't talk for all the women out there that have partners that cross-dress that they're aware of, because most of my clients, partners don't know. And most of my clients would be too fearful to tell the partners because of what could possibly happen, the fear of loss.
Yeah, I mean, this whole podcast began because I went on my own journey myself, which began in the pandemic when Jenny Raven appeared in my life. I finally gave her a name, and she started writing terribly smutty stories, which I started putting on Amazon. And then there was a website, and then there was a social media thing. And then a very close friend kind of just started talking to me about it. And I realized that I could write a biography about Jenny, and the kind of double life that I've lived, but like telling it from Jenny's perspective in Jenny's voice. And, because I've been on that journey, I've kind of had to confront a number of things, one of which very recently I kind of went full disclosure with my partner, and astonishingly she kind of smiled and shrugged and said, well, of course, like, go have fun, it's your one life, like, why would I get in the way of that? Just please be safe. But otherwise, go have fun. And I had literally spent 20 years in this relationship dreading that conversation, because I was certain I had escape routes planned. I had, like, what am I going to do? I'm going to get kicked out of the house. I had a whole kind of strategy in place. And of course, none of that happened. And bizarrely as well, again, just my personal story here, but, all of the kind of like the deep unmet needs and urges kind of aren't as strong anymore, because Jenny can come out and play whenever she wants.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's a strange thing. I guess my personal experience was that it didn't blow up in my face. And I'm not about to give anybody advice about their personal relationships. But that's what happened for me, and I'm not sure that that's typical. I'd be interested in hearing your thoughts on that.
I think, as I say, most of my clients are secret cross-dressers. They've not come out to their partners. Most of them do have partners or are married, and often are at that age now where they have grandchildren, and the risk. I have conversations with clients that have said to me, if their wife found a pair of stockings and knickers in the glove box, they're more likely to admit to an affair than wearing them themselves, which is really quite sad, because, as you say, some women would probably go, well, that's okay, that, I accept that part of your life. Unfortunately, it's the gamble that person's not prepared to take. And I understand that. And that, I think, is where Be a Lady comes in very, very useful for a lot of customers, because they can talk to somebody openly. They can express their fears of cross-dressing. I've had customers I've taken out for the very first time out in public, and they genuinely thought Armageddon would happen. And, the thanks and the gratefulness that you feel, it's such a big thing for me, because I know I'm making such a difference, even if it is for a short period of time, to that one person's experience in being a lady, literally feeling free and feeling they can be who they want to be. And I always say to people, and this rightly or wrongly, because I'm not a marriage counsellor and I don't want to give advice on, as you say, on other people's relationships, because nobody knows your partner like yourself. But the truth is, I always say, if you're not prepared to lose that person, then don't tell them, because you don't know what reaction you're going to get. And that might not be right. Someone else might say, look, be open and be honest and tell everybody. It's the backlash you've got to consider, and the loss. And when you're in your late 50s, early 60s, and you've lived it for 40 years and you've lived it in secret, and then all of a sudden you tell your wife of 40 years that you want to be addressed as a woman, that's going to be a shock to the system, no matter how understanding that woman is. And there will always be her fear of losing her man. And that's the underlying sort of my experience, the underlying fear is why women can't get their head around it.
So talk me through a typical experience of, how do people book with you? And then what is it like for them when they literally walk through the door? Because I've had enough experiences stepping into, brave new worlds, and it's terrifying no matter how much you think somebody's going to be smiling on the other side and give you a big hug and say it's okay. Tell me about the emotional experience as well of people on their first journey with you.
The first step is always the first phone call to me. Because bookings are either done, or inquiries are done through the website, where people just send me an email saying what they want to achieve, or they phone us on the Be a Lady phone line. And the truth of it is, once they've finished on that phone call, they feel relaxed about the whole experience, because I've put them at ease. You know, you're not on your own out there. This is something I've done for years, and this is your day, your experience. It's not about slapping on some makeup and wearing a dress. That's not what it's about. It's about how you feel in yourself, how good you feel, how relaxed you feel. So once that initial phone call normally happens, the rapport starts building. And that's what's important to me. You have to have a rapport for that person to feel at ease. And that's something I build in the shops. And that obviously then links to people coming to Be a Lady. And the way the day starts, we have a dedicated studio. It's not in somebody's back bedroom, or it's a studio that's dedicated for Be a Lady. We have racks and racks and racks of clothes. We have more breastplates than you can imagine. So every size boob you could possibly want. Shoes galore, wigs all over the place. So it is literally let's try everything and anything. Let's not create one look. Let's see what look works for you. And actually let's change the look that you think you want to look like, and let's switch it up. And more importantly, let's take a woman's opinion on how you really do look. Because you've got a woman stood in front of you telling you that makeup needs the work. That doesn't look right on you. That's not the right colour stocking. And it's that sort of detail that when they walk out, they think, I've learned something about myself, not just I've been dressed. You know, I've learned that black stockings do go with red miniskirts, or I've learned that you can't walk around the streets of Warrington in the middle of the afternoon looking like a hooker. You know, there are certain things that you have to take into account. As much as you might want to look like a hooker on a Saturday afternoon, and let's be honest, we all do our slut look. The truth is, there's a time and a place. And if you're going for a coffee, you dress accordingly. And I think that's the experience we try and give. You can dress like a hooker, and we can prance around our dungeon setting. So you can have your photographs in there looking like a hooker. But if we're going to go for coffee in Marks and Spencer's, then we need to dress accordingly. And it's experiences. It's all different experiences. Some people never want to leave the studio. They just want to try lots of outfits, lots of wigs, lots of boobs. I mean, I love that look on a face when they look down for the first time and actually see a pair of boobs. It's like the most fantastic look on everybody's face, because they go, oh my God, I've got tits. It's fascinating. And I love it. I just love that experience for everybody. Because it's real joy. And that's what the experience should be.
Yeah, I really resonate with everything that you're sharing there. Tell me about the emotions that bubble up for people, because I can imagine that sometimes it is such an enormous release. Stuff just overflows.
I mean, I don't know whether you've read any of the testimonies on the Be a Lady site. The initial is fear. Terrified, nervous wrecks walk through the door, because even though they've spoken to me and we've got this rapport and we're okay and we're like that nerve, they're making that step. They're taking the step to have it done professionally by a woman, and they are actually going to sit there and be transformed. And the fear is massive. Everybody, doesn't matter how many years they've been dressing, or what their experience have been to other places. There's always that fear, and that fear is adrenaline as well. I mean, the excitement, the excitement, that's what it is. It's excitement to be able to do what you want to do safely and in the company of someone that has experience of it, and someone they can openly talk to about all aspects of it. And because of the sex shop side of it, I also understand the sex and the kink side to it. So I have probably not just about the dressing, but also the progressiveness of that, the wanting to be like a woman, the wanting to be made to feel like a woman. And as crude as that sounds, whether that means being on your knees and sucking some guy's cock dressed as a woman, that's the progression in which people fantasize about. So they can openly talk to me about that, because nobody's going to judge. And that's a big step for a lot of people. They think, I'd never do it, but I've always thought if I was dressed as a woman, I'd love to feel like a woman. And I encourage that openness and talk to somebody, because it's not like you can go to your doctor and talk about it. It's not like you can go to your mates in the pub and talk about it. So it's a safe environment. They can openly and freely talk about what it is they get from cross-dressing. And I do encourage that, because it is not that I'm a therapist, not trained in that way, but I have experience from other people and other clients that have battled with this for years about their own question.
The value of being able to talk to somebody who actually isn't a therapist, but actually gets it, like really gets it, is so valuable. I think too often we can get stuck in too much deep analysis paralysis, instead of just getting down in the mud and rolling around and just going, this is fun. I'm really releasing and enjoying myself, being this version of myself with somebody who goes, brilliant, what else shall we do? I think that's extraordinarily valuable to people. And, just speaking about the fear thing, because this is very prescient for me, because it's only in the last 4 weeks that I wouldn't say I've come out of the closet to the world, but I've certainly come out to the closet inside my home. And that married up with my partner going away for a week. And as she left, she said, have fun, go crazy. So I kind of committed to doing that. And of course, things didn't quite work out the way I'd anticipated. Things went wrong. I didn't have, universally brilliant experiences. I'm very, happy I did all of those things. But what I realized is that I've been carrying the kind of shame, the guilt, the shadow, however you want to characterize it, the hiding, all of those intermingled, tangled emotions. And even though I had full permission, and it's great, it's brilliant, do whatever you want, all of that stuff was still lingering there in my subconscious. And when things went really, really well, it was good. But when things didn't go well, that all of that subconscious stuff bubbled right up and said, yeah, well, and I have all these stories about, of course, who I am based on experiences from when I was 11 years old, and all of that dark, unpleasant, shadowy stuff. So I can see how, somebody, when they come for their first experience, it's overwhelming, but it's a challenge because, we've lived with it in the shadows for so long, and it's bright out in the sunshine and light suddenly. And have you had any experience of how people have continued on their journey? I'm sure they come back to you time and time again.
The one thing I will say about Be a Lady, everybody's been back. Every single client has returned. So it's not a one-off. It's not just a makeover. It's an escape. It's it being yourself and talking freely. And that is again, I say it's progressive, because, the first time they come, they might come in the studio. The second time they say, oh God, maybe I will go for a coffee. Maybe I will go out in the street. Maybe I will go shopping, or we can go and have a drink in the cocktail bar. And because everyone around me knows me and everyone knows the business, that, I've got local boutiques and shops where they can try clothes on, and they can actually freely shop technically with a girlfriend, a female, and go shopping together and go for a coffee together and go and experience the things you really, truly want to experience.
Right.
Without fear.
Right. I mean,
because I'm also a protector. I'm only 5'3", but don't take me on.
I mean, you are obviously describing, a wonderful relationship that people can access and enjoy, and it's just, it's just fabulous. And I wish, I'm very, I wouldn't say envious. I'm very happy for the younger generation who seem to be able to just kind of do that straight away. I'm sure it's not that easy. But certainly it's easier than it was when I was a teenager in the north of England in 1982, or whatever it was. And, the only legitimate time I could do anything remotely in this world was when we went to see Rocky Horror. So consequently, I saw it like 25 times. ended up playing Frankenfurter on stage, the whole 6 inches of those heels. Yeah, so fabulous experience. But I just, there's a part of me that's very sad for the young person in me that could never, even though I did have a girlfriend at the time, and she directly confronted me once because of Rocky Horror. She just said, her words were, "You're a tranny, aren't you?" And I didn't answer, and she grinned, and we've spoken about it since, only last year actually, and had a good laugh about it. And I think, I wasn't confident enough to act on that question, but I think if I had, she would have probably engaged. But that, I think it speaks to, the fear at that time, and also mixed up with the fear of just being 14 and girls, and, that's a thing as well. Yeah. And the other thing I wanted to swing back to was, it's something we talked about earlier, before we hit record, because you kind of mentioned it, is that those. I heard Esther Perel, who's a brilliant speaker on human relationships and sex and sexuality, and she characterized it as excuse me. She characterized it as, there are a number of different ways that we can express the way that we connect. And there's eroticism, there's sexuality, as in, how you express yourself, gender, and then there's straight up sex. And her take is, and I think it's certainly what resonates with me, is that the erotic side of it, the playfulness, the games, the inhabiting characters, and all of that is in the erotic energy end of it. And, we like to sustain it and keep it going, instead of it just being, 7 minutes of wham bam, thank you, ma'am. And I just wondered what your thoughts were on that.
I agree. I think that again, I'm talking from my experience of Be a Lady and Nice and Naughty, because a lot of people that I have met over the years, it is about that sexual excitement. It's not about the sex. It's about the build up and the dressing and the feeling sexy and feeling feminine and the whole erotic side to it. And often without sounding sort of blunt about it, you're on the edge all the time. You're keeping yourself on the edge because the adrenaline's there and the excitement's running, and it's naughty and it feels naughty, but it's fun and it should be fun. So all of that combined makes it that sort of kinkiness that makes you feel excited. So it's not about necessarily the sex side. It's how you feel sexually about yourself. And again, that probably doesn't really make sense. I'm probably not explaining that very well, but when I talk to my customers and my clients and we chat about what's in it for them, there's always the same theme, the feeling sexy and the naughtiness and the kinkiness of it and the excitement of doing it. And most will describe it, and you'll probably associate this from your time in doing it secretly. It's an itch that never goes away. It's, the purge buy-in, I'll buy it, I'll dress, I'll feel guilty, I'll throw it away. I'll buy it again, I'll dress, and I'll put it away for 4 or 5 years sometimes. But the itch never ever goes away. And it's feeding that itch. It's feeding that thrill, that excitement, that need. And why should we have to suppress those?
I really identify with that description of what you just shared about the idea that sometimes the urge, the itch goes away. And in the book that I'm writing, I talk about how Jenny sometimes can just go to sleep, or sometimes she'll go into a straight up coma and disappear for a huge amount of time, and then kind of comes strutting back in her red heels, demanding attention, and how she'll often show up at, like, one of the things that she does, and I adore this, is, if I'm driving and I'm really tired, she'll just start whispering in my ear, and I fully awake suddenly, and that's obviously very delicious. But that erotic energy, I mean, you kind of you were being, I suppose, polite by saying, keeping on the edge. I'm a bit more direct. I'm like, I fully understand that this is about erotic edging, and
Yeah.
the books that I've written are very much about going to the edge and then staying there as long as possible, and until that final euphoric moment of release, and then embrace and celebration and relaxation and all of the lovely stuff that follows. And for whatever reason, and I'd be interested to get your take on that, because there's a part of me that is very masculine, and with my partner I can be the masculine man. I have no problem with that. I've always been able to do that. But when Jenny comes to play, oh my goodness, it's on an entirely different experience. And I was lucky in with my partner, in so much as four weeks into our relationship 20 years ago, I told her about my cross-dressing, and she embraced it. And then it kind of got a bit boring for her. She kind of just lost interest, and it kind of literally went in the closet, and it never really came back out. So I think that's one of the reasons why she didn't blow a gasket when I shared with her that I'm a secretly successful erotic novelist, and I got a podcast and a website and all of that, but yeah, that's that whole erotic thing that shows up in heels as opposed to boxer shorts. Even if the boxer shorts are satin, it's a whole different experience.
And that's what I try and encourage. I'm not naive to think for 1 minute this is just about looking like a woman. It's about feeling. It's about how you feel sexually, how you feel erotically, how you feel the feminine side, that whole overall feeling that you get from being dressed head to toe in the most feminine look you've ever seen. I've dressed people that have dressed for 40 years, and they've come in and we've wowed them with our makeovers. They've looked in the mirror and wowed in it. And I've got it on video on one of them. And it put such a smile on my face, because this particular person, who actually is on one of my videos on the Be a Lady Instagram, and they were reluctant to change the way they saw themselves. They had an image, as many, many, many dressers do. They have an image and they stick with it. My job is to change that image and at least give you a variance of, give you options of what you can achieve, rather than just sticking with what you know. And what I will say to everybody that dresses, a wig has a back. It needs brushing and looking after. The front is not the only thing people see. And it's that simple little thing that makes a big difference if you're going out trying to be convincing and looking great. Like I say, I took a particular client and we spent all day together, and I created 4 looks that she would not have gone anywhere near. But she wowed. She literally stood in the mirror and wowed at herself. And she said, I can't believe you've done that. And that is more important than anything. That impact, that moment when someone looks at themselves and goes, oh my God, that's me. That's Jenny. That's Kaz. That's Sophie. Whoever. That's me. The real true me that needs to shine every now and again. And I love it.
Yeah, it's super intoxicating. And, one of the things I guess I'm trying to find is, how do I integrate all parts of me into a single version of me, so that I don't have to keep Jenny over here in a box. That's my first step, is home. The next step is going to be the wider world, and then I don't know how far it will go. I don't know whether I need to go that far. But tell me about, what it's like being out in the world for the first time. As if I were out as Jenny, let's homogenize all your stories into one. The experience of being out in the world, breathing air, walking around in heels, going down the street with most people ignoring you, maybe one or two people, glancing at you, but really not paying much attention because, everybody's got their own problems and they're obsessed with themselves.
And the phones.
Yeah.
Obsessed with the phones. Again, I'm going from experience of the clients that I've taken out, who most of my clients are what I call bedroom dressers, never ever ventured out of the house. So going out that first time is, as one explained to me, I actually genuinely thought Armageddon would happen if I breathed fresh air. And the spring in the step or the wobble in the stiletto, depending how you look at it, that whole adrenaline rush, the oh my God, Jenny is out to be seen in public for the first time ever. You can't bottle that. You can't bottle that feeling. And that all comes back to me, obviously, in feedback of, how much they adore the experience, how much they can't thank me enough for being there by their side for that experience, feeling safe, knowing that they've got someone to hold on to if they need that support. And you can't bottle the feeling. And I know you'll say the same. You can't actually express how emotional it is, not just for them, but for me, because the smile on their face and the joy they're portraying to me makes it such an experience for me, because I'm making a difference to somebody's life. And it might only be for a couple of hours, but it makes a massive difference to somebody's life. The way and rightly or wrongly, I as a woman can choose to wear a suit. I can choose to wear a pair of jeans. So why can't you as a man choose to wear a dress? I mean, the Romans did it. It's a piece of fabric at the end of the day. How you choose to wear that piece of fabric should be your choice. And society, we've been brought up in a society of judgment. We judge people. I mean, I've worked in the sex industry, having adult shops. I've been to more council meetings about people opposing because I'm going to burn in hell. And, I've had the Bible bashers outside my shop. I've had people thinking I'm going to prostitute people. It's just because it's a stigma that unfortunately we've had to live with, because the adult industry, specifically the shop side of it, we're always very sleazy and dingy and horrible. I'm one of those people that fought to change that. I was the only adult shop in the UK that had investor in people. I wasn't allowed to show the plaque outside, unfortunately. They did have they still had the reservations about it, but we achieved investor in people. We were a very professionalized business, and everything we do is about people. My customers in the shop have been coming for 26 years. They are still coming to the shop 26 years down the line. Customers that have been dressing, my very first experience, which I mentioned earlier, was an eye-opening experience. I didn't realize people did that. I was naive. I'd come from a corporate background into the adult industry. So yeah, big shock. But it fascinated me. And what I've achieved from it is also my own joy, because everything's about helping others. That's what I think this life should be. It's all about helping others. And if you make a difference to one person in one day, then you've made a big difference. You've impacted. And I say that in the nicest way, where if you're stood in a queue in the supermarket and there's a little old lady behind you, turn around and talk to her, because you might be the only person that day she gets to speak to. But you've made her day. So little things make big differences to people. And that's really why I created what I've created.
Yeah, I mean, you can hear the massive heart that you have and share with everyone, and the joy that it brings people when you allow them and encourage them to explore all the things that they've wanted to explore for, as you said, decades, and how that shows up for them. What would you say are the most popular things that your dressers choose and want to explore, aside from obviously the boobies?
The boobies are always a fascination. If you put a breastplate on someone that's never really had chest plates or breasts or had a proper, and the amount, and I'm going to say this, someone should put how to wear my boobs on a blog, because the amount of people that wear fillets, I call them fillets, they're silicone implants, not a chest plate, the plants that you put in your bra, they wear them the wrong way round. You're not supposed to have this big gap in the middle. They're supposed to fold round. And those are the simple things. You go, I've been wearing them wrong for all these years. Just assumed they were that way. So we have all sorts of giggles on those sorts of things. And yes, the first thing they look down and go, oh my God, they're mine. You know, they feel real, they're full of silicone. So, and the bigger the better, you know. So big E-cups sat in front of you always goes down really well. There are 3 very distinctive looks that people will ask for. And it's normally things they think they want. So what we tend to do, because we have a makeup artist, so Lindsay's my makeup artist, who's with me and worked with me for 23 years. I can't get rid of my staff. If anyone been to a Nice and Naughty shop, they've been there forever. I've got staff, there's 7 of us in the team. So you'll always speak to a human being at Nice and Naughty because there's 7 of us help each other out. And Lindsay's the makeup artist. And what we do is they'll go, I want to be, you know, I want to pass as a woman. So we'll do a very subtle makeup and we'll make that, you know, afternoon tea look. And then they go, well, actually, I'm thinking maybe a little bit of this, little bit. And what we actually end up with is a slut look. By the end of it, we actually progress. So what actually the majority want to do, and I say this with the nicest possible heart, they want to look at the woman in the mirror, the person they see in the mirror is what they admire and adore when they look at a woman. And everyone loves a woman in thigh-length boots and a mini skirt in most circumstances. We're talking, you know, heterosexual married men that are turned on by miniskirts and long legs and over-knee boots. That's not to say that every bloke is turned on by that. So what they're trying to emulate is what they find attractive. Often that is short skirts, thigh-length boots, boobs sticking out, you know, and that sort of slutty look, heavy makeup. And that's what we do. We'll achieve that. I don't take people dressed for coffee like that, I must admit. Although I've got a big photo shoot tomorrow, because I do publishing as well. I publish people that want to go into sissy magazines and things like that. So we organise, because I know the guy that produces the magazine, so we can do photo shoots with people. And the other look is the sissy look. Very girly, very pink, very frilly, very OTT sissy is how I would describe it. So, you know, you're very pink satin, lots of ruffles. And again, a very, very different look, a different escapism. It's a different type of cross-dressing. I don't actually put the sissy and the cross-dressing together. I would say if you want to have the full sissy experience and the sissy maid experience, then that's very different than cross-dressing for your own sort of side of your own excitements and your own thrills. Sissy's a different type of dressing. And then you've got your very, let's go to Marks and Spencer's for a coffee dressing, your afternoon look, which you still need heavy makeup, but it needs to be subtle heavy makeup because we're going out for coffee or a drink and so it is 3 very distinctive styles. It always tends to end up with the slut look. As much as they don't think that's what they want, more often than not, that's where it ends. So I tend to start with, let's go for the afternoon coffee look. And then let's play around with different looks, different wigs. Because a wig changes everything. You know, a short black crop wig will make you look like a dom, fetish dom. If you put a nice blonde curly wig on, you're a very feminine look. So you can really change it up with style of wigs and style of makeup.
It's really interesting, isn't it? You kind of mentioned something earlier that I've been exploring myself, which is, you know, I am a heterosexual male. When I dress, I would characterize myself as a trans lesbian, if that's, you know, an accurate way to describe it. And I there's no part of me that wants to have an experience with men. And you characterize it as you look in the mirror and you admire yourself because that's the type of woman that you admire, you know, out in the real world. And it's interesting how, I suppose, what caused that, what was the mechanism for that in me to want to be so close to feminine energy, to want to be so intimate with women that I would even become a woman in order to have that closeness. And and that's why, I think what you do is so powerful for people, because the pinnacle of that experience surely is being a woman with women. That becomes
Yes.
unbelievably intoxicating and exciting. And, it's like, I want this again right away.
And the reality of that is, because there's two of us, there's Lindsay and myself. So Lindsay's a makeup artist because I don't do makeup. If I did makeup, you'd look like a clown. Lindsay's an exceptionally good makeup artist. And the truth is, and she's worked in my shops for 23 years. So she knows the market. She knows the emotions that people go through just by walking in a shop and asking for something for themselves. And the amount of people that come in and go, I'm looking for something for my wife. And you're like, okay, what size is she? Well, she's about a size 16. And you look at this person, you go, do you want to try it on? And they're like, oh my God, it's not for me. It's not for me. And you know it is. And eventually they go, well, it is actually for me. And there is your instant rapport. And that feeling of safety, that feeling of these women accept and are not only accepting, but encouraging me to be myself. And like I say, it's a joy for us as much as it is for the person that's coming to visit. Now, a bit that we were saying about the looking at what you admire and what a lot of my clients get from dressing is the adoration they then get from other people. Men look at women, whether you're a cross-dressing male or not, but they admire a good-looking woman. So by you being a good-looking woman, you'll get admired and adored. And that adoration doesn't actually naturally come from women to men. We just don't do it in the same way that men do it to women. So when you're dressed as a woman and you've got your stilettos on and you're strutting your stuff, you know you're creating an impression that people will look at. And often men will look, admire, and think, God, she's got good legs. Irrelevant that they know potentially it may be a male, but they still admire the person that's in front of them. And that person that's dressed as a woman, Jenny or Kaz or Sophie, is glowing at that point, glowing because they are being adored. And that's my job. You walk out and you feel that you are creating a little bit of self-love because people are adoring you.
I'm getting my train ticket. I'm coming to see you right now.
I love it. I do. And I can't, I've seen cross-dressing studios. I've watched what they do. That's not what we're about. We are about the experience that you leave that studio and you think, oh my God, that was the experience that I wanted, I needed, because I feel $1 million. Not necessarily outside, but definitely inside. And that's what you get from it.
It's really something else. It's something else. Okay, I think we're coming to the end. So how can people find you? Give us your socials, your websites, and all that stuff.
Instagram and Facebook is all BA Lady. So BEA Lady UK, I believe, is the socials. Same on Twitter. We also have a website, which is belady.co.uk.
I'll put all those links underneath the podcast. And so finally, I asked this question of everybody, but if you were to offer a piece of advice to somebody who's, wanting to dress more, wanting to come and explore the feminine side that maybe hasn't done for some time or hasn't done as fully as they would like to, what advice would you offer them?
I think I'd probably go back to my motto. I think the reality is live once, try twice. And I always say twice because the first time, the apprehension, the anxiety, the fear, you don't actually enjoy the experience. The second time, you know what to expect, you're relaxed, it's more fun. And don't ever die wondering. Don't ever die with regret. So grab hold of the opportunity, whether it be 2 hours, a day, a week, or whatever, but just grab the opportunity, because the one thing we have guaranteed in this life is we have one shot at it. So enjoy it.
You're literally talking to my soul right now. I had thought we were going to wrap it up, but I just got to, share some thoughts on what you've just said. I put myself into therapy about 2 years ago because, like many people at my age, I was looking at the end of the tunnel, and one of the things that came up in therapy is I had a checklist of stuff I wanted to do that I perceived that was incompatible with a monogamous, heterosexual, normal relationship, however you want to characterize that. It was all around, me being expressed as Jenny, and it was really, really quite horrible. And that journey has led me to this point, which is, I'm opening the doors and walking into the daylight in my red high heels, and enjoying every step on that catwalk, thank you. But just, to resonate again with one of the things you said, try twice, because in my week-long, my first outing where I had total freedom, lots of things went wrong, and they weren't good. But all that's really done is strengthen me to either already have gone for a second attempt and had a fantastic time, or commit to the second one, armed with the knowledge of what it was that I was afraid of before. So now I'm not walking in blind, I'm walking in with my eyes wide open, so it's no longer terrifying. And that second attempt is, it's where I discover I'm in love with this thing or not for me. But it's that second attempt that is important.
Absolutely. And that's what I say to everybody. And whether that be in the shop, whether that be in the Be a Lady studios, the try twice is so important, as you've just said. Because if you don't like it the second time, the chances are you're not going to like it. But don't ever give up on your first attempt, and that's for anything in life. That's not just about dressing. That's anything in life, because you don't really know until you give it a go.
Amazing. Thank you for what has been an extraordinary conversation. I've loved every minute of it. I'm about to go and get into my box of delights to celebrate. And thank you again.
It's been a pleasure.
And hopefully we'll meet up at some point, and hopefully we'll send some people your way to have a fabulous experience with you, and let's stay in touch.
Absolutely. It's been lovely, Jenny. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, girls, for listening to my podcast. I really appreciate you listening all the way through to the end. If you've enjoyed what you've heard, then please consider going over to my website at jennyraven.com and join my mailing list. Then you'll get information about all of my very, very naughty things that I send out on a regular basis. You'll also get access to a couple of my free stories. You can either read them, or better still, you can experience them as an audio journey where I will directly encourage you to dress up for me in your favourite costume and do very, very, very unspeakably naughty things. I can't wait for you to send me photos of that experience with me, so please do join up at jennyraven.com.